everyone! This week on Unwind with me, I'm going to show you 3 ways to make crochet flowers. You can put them just about anywhere, from your clothes to your backpack. Let's get started! Alright, this week I'm going to show you 3 different levels of crochet flowers, from simplest to most complex. You're going to need some acrylic yarn, your scissors, a crochet hook, a size smaller than recommended for your yarn. I work in worsted weight acrylic, which is normally recommended an I hook, so I'm working in an H hook this week. I also have my optional stitch marker and my yarn needle. First, we're going to be doing the simplest double crochet 5-petal flower. So I have my yarn, and I'm going to do a magic circle like we learned last week. Right. Cross my yarn here, slip under the first thread, over the second, grab it and twist so that I have a big loop and then a little loop on my hook. I'm going to chain 3 and then double crochet into this loop over both of these pieces of yarn. So and then I'm going to chain 3 and slip stitch this chain to the bigger circle. So I'll go down through the big circle, draw up a loop, and through that. So it attaches firmly to this loop. And that gives me my first petal. And so I'll just repeat those steps. Chain 3, double crochet, so yarn over into the big loop, pull up, yarn over to pull up a loop, yarn over through 2, yarn over through 2, chain 3, and then slip stitch onto that loop. Chain 3, 1 double crochet stitch, chain 3, slip stitch onto the circle. Chain 3, double crochet, oh, I've got a thread there, chain 3, slip stitch onto the circle, always making sure that I'm crocheting over both of these, because this is what allows my circle to tighten. So I have 4 petals, and if I were doing this in green and making a 4-leaf clover, I would stop now, chain off a little stem and tighten it all down, and then I'd have a 4-leaf clover. But I'm making a flower, so I will chain 3, double crochet, chain 3, and slip stitch onto the big circle. And it will look something like this. I'll have all my petals on one side, and then I'll have this big gap on this side. So before I do anything else, I'm going to grab this tail and gently pull to eliminate the gap and bring my flower together. And then I'm going to yarn over to pull the yarn through, cut my yarn so I have a tail, and then pull through to make that knot to secure everything. And there you have a simple, flat, 5-petal flower. To finish this off, all we're going to do is flip it over to the other side. Find which thread is our starting one. So it's this one right here. Thread my yarn needle, and we're just going to make a few rounds of weaving in to secure the magic circle. And once we've done that, we can do a few things from there. We can cut both of these threads off. We can leave them to tie around things to attach them that way. Or you can take these and use them to sew the flower onto a blanket or a hat or just about anywhere you like, really. But for my purposes today, I'm going to snip them off right there. And there is our 5-petal flower. Next, I'm going to show you how to make a many-petaled flower. So, to start this, you're going to pull out some line for the thread, going to make a slip knot, and chain 4, and then slip stitch into that first chain to make a circle. Chain 1, and then make 12 single crochets in the bigger circle. For this one, and really any circle or round object made with single crochets, I highly recommend using your stitch marker, because you will not count this chain 1, only this first stitch. So I've just hooked it onto my stitch, so I always know which one is the first one. So that's 1, so I need to make 11 more. You're going to want to make them pretty tight together because you will almost run out of room. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And really, you almost crochet over that chain 1 to make your height. It's squished in so tight. So now you have a donut, basically. And then you're going to take out your stitch marker and you're going to slip stitch into that first single crochet. Now chain 4, and then you will slip stitch into the next single crochet stitch. These make your petals. Chain 4, and slip stitch into the next single crochet. And you will do this all of the way around until you meet that first stitch. I recommend doing just the chain 4s to make your petals. However, you can do larger numbers to make longer petals, if that's what you like. Pay attention to where you're going and that you're actually slip stitching and not single crocheting. Flowers are worked slightly tighter. That's why we're using a smaller hook. So it can be easy to get a little confused about where you are. And then right back into that same slip stitch that started it all. Alright, there you have it. So I'm going to do the loop so that chain so I can get my fasten off, cut my yarn, pull it through and tighten down to get a knot. I don't need to weave in the end at the back because it's chained and knotted, so it's not coming out. The only thing I'll do is take my finishing yarn, put it on my needle, and just tuck it into the back so it doesn't stick out at the front. And there you have it. Again, like last time, you can leave these to tie it on to something like this, or you can sew it onto something with these, or trim them off. Finally, I'm going to be showing you how to make this simple rose. It is one of the simplest ways to make a rose, but it's probably the most complicated flower you learn how to make today. Let me show you how it's done. going to start further up my yarn so I have a tail. I'm going to make a slip stitch, and then I'm going to chain 15. 1, 2, 3, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Just like that. And this is a variable pattern. So you can, as long as you have at least 15 chains, you can keep going and going and make a giant rose. I've never made one much bigger than double this, so I don't know how big you could make them, but I don't see why with the right yarn you couldn't make giant ones. So now you're going to yarn over and double crochet into the second chain from the hook. So 1, 2. It's going to be a little difficult. You're going to want to make a half double crochet there. It would be very easy to do, so just make sure you make a double. And then you yarn over, and into that same chain you make another double crochet. And in every chain down the line you will make 3 double crochet stitches into each of them. It's going to take some getting used to and a lot of concentration to make sure you're getting into the stitches correctly, because putting so many stitches into one chain can distort later chains and make it easy to miss them. So just make sure that you're paying attention. Even for me, it can be a little difficult. This technique causes curling down the line, and you can already see it starting. So this one is starting to curl into the line because you have more surface area on this side than you do on the side that's chained. And this is what gives you the rose twirl. Sometimes, as I work, I find it helpful to use the hand that has my hook to kind of pinch and grab onto this crocheted work so it doesn't move around on me while I'm putting the hook into the next chain. And while it's probably not best practice, I will admit, when making these, I don't always catch the V. I might only catch one. So it comes out looking a little more like that. You get a slight gap right there. It doesn't make any difference to your finished product when you're making these roses. Of course, try to catch the V on top when you can, but if you don't make it every time, no big deal. All right, I've made it to the end. And as you can see, I have a twisty-turny mess, basically. But we'll soon fix that. chain so that I can fasten off. Cut a long thread and pull through to knot at the end. And then you're going to start at this end and gently roll everything together. So that it looks like a rose. And then you will take your very long tail and thread it on your needle so that you can sew everything in place. So make sure you have your roses just how you want it, because once you sew it, once you don't have complete control of how it looks, but once you start sewing it together, you're kind of stuck with it. So pass the needle right through the middle and out on the lower half of the other side. So you've passed through the entire, and you can even see it there in the middle, you've passed through the entire rose. Pull it tight to secure. And then you flip it over to the back, and you just make a few passes back and forth at a couple of different angles to secure the whole thing together. Kind of adjust it from this side so you don't pull too tight. And this just keeps your rose from falling apart. And your back will look something like this, and then your front will look like a rose. You can, again, you can use these to tie it or sew it onto something, but I'm going to just trim them off. All right, we have our 3 levels of flowers. There's a lot of flower patterns out there, so if you like making them, do consider looking some more up. Next week, I'm going to show you how to make a sphere with crochet. You're going to need acrylic yarn, scissors, the appropriate sized hook, a needle. You will definitely need a stitch marker next week. You will also need polyfill, cotton balls, or yarn scraps or scrap cloth or anything that you can use to stuff the sphere. So I look forward to showing you that. I will see you next week. Bye!